Boruto's Jougan is one thing I definitely do want to talk about in this video, considering that I've been getting a lot of comments in my comment section, a lot of DMs on my Twitter, and I've just been seeing a bunch of discussion on the eye itself, and I kind of just want to weigh my opinion on whether the Jougan is coming soon or not, especially in the current arc in the Boruto manga. And with the anime, I definitely do think there is a possibility for the Jougan to actually make an appearance in the current anime canon arc, but I'll talk about that later. I do want to talk about the manga now, on the chances of whether the Jougan will make an appearance or not, or will it just be a part 2 thing. So with that being said, I do want to say that at least with the current arc in the Boruto manga, with the so-called quote-unquote code arc, the arc hasn't really talked about or mentioned the Jougan itself. There hasn't been any hints or foreshadowing that has evolved with this dojutsu. The only thing I could say that has any connections with the Jougan is of course the famous panel of the Otsutsuki god with a bunch of Jougan surrounding it, and it does seem like the Otsutsuki god does have the Jougan himself. That was the only thing so far in the manga that has really shown the Jougan. I guess the only thing besides that panel that you could say that the Jougan is in the manga is chapter 1, but of course there is that debate on whether if that eye is just a Byakugan. Besides that point, the Jougan hasn't been relevant at all in the Boruto manga. It hasn't been mentioned, it hasn't been talked about, at least in Boruto part 1. The main plot point, especially with power-ups, has been the Karma Seal. Of course, with Boruto and Kawaki being Otsutsuki, the Karma Seal has been a driving plot point for both characters. So with that being said, I didn't really expect the Jougan to make an appearance anytime soon, considering in the latest arc there has been even more developments with the Karma Seal itself, with Boruto accessing that true essence form and later on becoming 100% Otsutsuki, and with Kawaki gaining his Karma Seal back. Those are humongous revelations for both main characters of this storyline. It's kind of hard to just throw the Jougan in with such huge plot points for both main characters. With the fact that it hasn't been mentioned, I would have expected a character like Ada to have talked about the Jougan when she came out. When she was first introduced in the Boruto manga, she did talk about her clairvoyance ability. Just to remind you guys, she has the ability to see everything in the world in current time, and as well as events that has happened in the past up to her birth date. She didn't mention the Jougan when she talked about on what she's seen so far. Nothing has really particularly interested her as a character, at least when it comes to seeing things with her clairvoyant ability. The only thing that she has mentioned in the past that someone has piqued her interest is the likes of Ishiki Otsutsuki dying and how he pathetically died to Kawaki, and of course the boy himself. But besides that, nothing has really piqued her interest, and if the Jougan is such a dangerous eye, I definitely would have thought that Ada would have mentioned it by now. But the one counterpoint I would bring to that is Ada does seem to overlook things. For example, when Boruto was fighting Code, when he suffered that heart attack, she did tell Code that Boruto was probably having that heart attack because of the pills that Amato gave him. When Code did hear that, he was like, wait, what? Boruto is taking pills, meaning that Ada does seem to hold back information and just not talk about it. So with that being said, she might know that Boruto does have the Jougan. I do imagine that she does know about it, but it seems like she's not trying to bring it up, which is pretty interesting because that would mean that she's hiding information from Code, and it is in character for her to be like that, considering that she is hiding some abilities from the likes of Code, and same thing can apply with Damon as well. If Ada does know, which I do expect her to know about this dojutsu, she is definitely keeping this knowledge to herself. She doesn't want to tell Code, but at least with the relevance of the Jougan coming in, there really isn't any room to just throw that eye in there. And with that being said, at least in my opinion, I don't think we'll be seeing this dojutsu at any time soon, at least in the current manga arc, because with what's going on currently, Code wants to get his limiters removed. We know that Boruto's heading to where Code and Ada are. We don't really know how the Jougan can be thrown in. Despite me saying I don't think it's gonna happen, I think there is a small chance of it actually happening though. With the fact that Ada is keeping this information to herself, I wouldn't be surprised if they just threw that in there. They'd show a little hint of Boruto using the Jougan. At least for me though, I definitely do think the Jougan will be used as a part 2 plot point, considering that this eye isn't just a power-up, it's a driving point for Boruto's character. And at least in the Boruto anime, in the very beginning, in the first 12 to 15 episodes, this was a very important plot point for Boruto's character. At first he thought this was a Byakugan, but later on he realized that this is a completely different eye. So all I'm gonna say is that I'm not ruling out the chances of the Jougan actually coming to the manga, at least in this current arc, but all I'm gonna say is that the chances of it actually happening is pretty low. If it does happen, I'm not gonna lie, the fandom is gonna go crazy. This is an eye that many fans do like. Personally, I do think the eye is cool, but I can't really rate it as high as something like the Sharingan or the Rinnegan. Despite the Jougan having some weight to Boruto's character, it hasn't been fully explored yet for me to really give a f about it, like said other dojutsu. So don't get your hopes up, but I do expect the Jougan to be a very prevalent point for Boruto's character in the time skip, in Boruto Shippuden. I just want to tell you guys that because I don't want you guys getting your hopes up. Don't get your hopes too high, but if it does happen, I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be crazy. And let's talk about the actual actual possibility of the Jougan coming to the current manga arc. In the case that Boruto actually does activate the Jougan in the current manga arc, I'm not gonna lie, he might go crazy, considering that now that Boruto is 100% Otsutsuki, I wouldn't be surprised if he actually is able to use the Jougan at a very and highly effective rate. In the past, in the Boruto anime, whenever Boruto activated his Jougan, it would activate in spurts, and while he would be using his abilities, he would kind of be using it unconsciously where he doesn't really have control over it. And now that he is 100% Otsutsuki in the current manga arc, and with the fact that he did tell Amado in the latest chapter that, yo, I can actually channel Momoshiki's powers a lot better now, I wouldn't be surprised if Boruto would go crazy with the Jougan. For example, using these abilities that he has used in the anime in the past at a much more effective rate, and possibly use unknown abilities that the Jougan has. You gotta remember, now that Boruto is 100% Otsutsuki, he can actually access 1,000 years worth of combat experience through the Karma Seal. And with that being said, if he can actually utilize this knowledge, especially when using the Jougan, in the case that it does happen, I'm not gonna lie, that's gonna be a bad man. Like, yo, I'm not gonna cap right there. That's gonna be kind of scary, considering that if you look at Kawaki, for example, with him having the Karma Seal, we did see in the last chapter him activate Ishiki's dojutsu like that. He didn't have to activate his Karma Seal, he didn't have to do anything. He just activated it on his own, thanks to his years of training with the Karma and the added experience that he has with his Otsutsuki DNA. I wouldn't be surprised if this happens as well with Boruto, considering that he did say that he can channel Momoshiki's powers a lot better. So in the very small chance that he does activate the Jougan in the current arc, my man's gonna go crazy. Now that he's an Otsutsuki, a god tier figure, a god tier type character in terms of power, I expect a lot more in the small chance that the Jougan does come to the manga. But don't get your hopes up, it is most likely going to be a part 2 Boruto Shippuden type power up. So now that I got the manga version out the way, let's talk about the anime. So right now in the anime, they're going through an anime canon arc, and with that being said, the writers are a lot more flexible currently than compared to Kishimoto when it comes to writing the Boruto manga. They can add whatever they want because we don't really know what to expect with the current timeline. Obviously, in the latest episode, Kagura did get his back blown out, RIP the goat, and Boruto's trying to get back in blood. And while he didn't get to kill Funamushi, he definitely wants to slide for his boy. He's definitely out for revenge. I think there is a chance that Boruto can activate his Jougan in the current anime canon arc. Just to remind you guys, it's been a while. It's been over 120 episodes since Boruto has actually used the Jougan in the Boruto anime. The last time he did use the Jougan was when Boruto was fighting Urashiki alongside Shinki, and when he was fighting Urashiki, it does seem like the Jougan did give him an amp in power, and on top of that, a chakra boost, considering that he did make shadow clones of the likes of Shinki, and he was able to get a boosted Rasengan that did destroy Urashiki's horn. And when before activating his Jougan, he was struggling tremendously against Urashiki to the point where he almost could have died, and when he activated the Jougan, the tide of the battle basically flipped. So I wouldn't be surprised if Boruto actually activates his Jougan in the current anime canon arc. I think the writers are flexible to do that. They are pretty ballsy, especially with the fact that Kagura did die. I wouldn't be surprised if he does, you know. If he does, I think that'd be dope. It's been over 120 episodes since he last used it. I'm hoping he does. With him using the Karma Seal, maybe they're trying to focus more on the Karma, especially with the pills that were mentioned in the latest episode. I think it would be dope to see the Jougan activate once again in this current arc, because it's been a minute since we last seen it. But those are my thoughts on when the Jougan will make an appearance in the anime and the manga. Let me know, when do you think the Jougan will make an appearance, especially in the manga, because I know there's been some discussion about that. Do you think it's gonna happen in the latest arc, or do you think it's gonna be a part 2 thing? Especially in the anime, do you think there's a chance of it coming out when he's battling the Funato clan? Let me know what you think about that in the comment section below. So if you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell as well, and have a good day. Peace.